everybody, I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 3, 4, and 5 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So if you haven't watched those episodes yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to DisneyPlus, check out all 3 of those episodes, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, join with me to break down everything from episodes 3, 4, and 5 of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's Jon Jon Rico.
Hello.
Hello.
How we doing?
No flip.
Flip, my dudes. That one?
That one. I look forward to the certain Rico sayings. And
yeah, I like to surprise people.
Keep them guessing.
I'm on their toes.
So we've got a lot to go over. So, I mean, we're going to do this, the same way we do any of the, the 2 episode premieres where we're going to do, instant reactions for each episode, takeaways for each episode, and then we'll do predictions while we're talking about, episode 5 so that we can move to next week's stuff that we're predicting for. So just wanted to lay that out just so you can get a scope of things. And this is going to, we're not going to make it as long as absolutely possible or anything, but we do have 3 episodes we're going to go over. So there's a lot to talk about. A lot of stuff happened, which I'm super happy for. Like, I'm still really surprised and impressed that these are full-length episodes. These aren't like, 2 episodes equal to like a 30 to 35 minute thing. Like, we had cartoons that were like that, where they would be like half episodes. They'd be like 16-ish minutes type of thing, and you put 2 of them together.
Oh, yeah. The Rugrats is like one of the first examples I can think of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I was thinking of. But I originally, when we saw this release schedule, I kind of thought it was going to be something like that. And that's why they were grouping so many together. But full-size episodes. I compared it to full-size candy bars during Halloween. And I still like that analogy. Anyway, getting ready to episode 3. I just gotta say this, and I think this will lead perfectly into kind of your quick reactions for episode 3. I still feel like this intro, like for this series, is a non-skip intro. It keeps giving me the option to skip intro, and I'm like, no, thank you.
There we go again. Swinging through the city so fast you can barely notice them.
I would like to watch and listen to this entire intro because I'm really
Great
digging.
song.
Yeah, I'm really digging. How it starts off like the really classic, Spider-Man cartoon like theme song, and then it graduates into like this new updated version, and I just every single time it does that shift, I love it, and I'm like, I'm staying here for the whole thing. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for episode 3?
Yeah, it's an absolute banger for sure. I'm listening to it right now as we listen, because one of the things I like to do when we record these is listen to music from like the shows or movies that we're talking about, just puts me in that fun little mood. But yeah, this is just like a solid, good song in general, and just like a straight up bop as we're listening to it. Like when I'm listening to talk, I'm just kind of like trying not to get lost in like dancing to the music, But yeah, the title sequence, the opening set title sequence is something that I feel like Marvel does really well, just in general. I mean, my favorite TV intro maybe of all time is the Netflix Daredevil title sequence too. Like I just feel like when they do a good one, it just hits on a certain level. And again, Spider-Man, someone that we've gotten many iterations of, especially in animated TV show form. And there's a lot of different good theme songs out there. Like the Spectacular Spider-Man is one that kind of stands out to me. The original 90s animated one, of course, is a classic theme song as well. But yeah, again, good job of just making it feel classic yet modern. Is this kind of something I say a lot when it comes to this show, I feel like. But yeah, it's just a banger of a song. And yeah, the title sequence itself is unskippable to me as well, because at the end of the title sequence, we always get like a different cover
Right.
So a different comic book cover that's kind of like either a nod to a classic cover, or it could be like its own little thing that just feels like a classic comic book cover at the same time. And we get 3 pretty good ones in this one as well. That's one of the things I really do appreciate about the whole the title sequence thing in television in general. I always appreciate a really good one. But yeah, when it comes to like, the setting the tone for the show, I think this one does it perfectly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It gets you in that mode of, okay, I can't wait to see what's going to happen type of thing.
Yeah.
And you brought it up. It is, I mean, we were comparing it to this last recap video too. Every single time you say the 90s one, all I can hear is like, because that was like the rock version one too.
Right.
It was like
everything was all like electric guitar back then.
Yeah, exactly. And now I can hear that one in my head. Like
Mhm.
I'm just hearing it, it instantly drew that one up.
It was a great era for theme songs.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But do you want to get to some big takeaways for episode 3?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna kick this one off. I mean, we had big moments, I think, in all 3 of these episodes, pretty much. And I guess one of the biggest kind of takeaways from this is we get the first interaction with, Peter and Norman Osborn kind of working together to help, like, defeat the villains in this. And
Mhm.
in this particular episode, it was the couple, right? I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Demon and somebody else. I can't remember
Right.
the name of the other character.
Right. So this, as soon as it happened, just instantly reminded me of, I mean, we've both watched this. We've talked about this in the past, the CW Flash.
Oh, yeah.
Series.
Fantastic show.
This instantly reminded me of the first season of that, because that's
Mhm.
exactly what happens. We have fake Harrison Wells talk to Barry to like help coach him through the early stages of him becoming Flash type of thing.
Right.
And this was like, and there's like, I'm on board with you now. I mean, I was before because it's Norman Osborn, but I was like,
Right.
well, maybe this universe is a little bit different. But because it was so similar in this introductory moment of Norman helping Peter in that fight, the parallels of then Harrison Wells helping Barry in his early stages fights and stuff like that. And then we find out later that, that's actually the Reverse Flash and all this stuff. Go
Right.
watch the CW Flash. At least the first
great.
few seasons are very, very worth watching.
Yeah. Season 1 and 2 specifically, I think, are some of the best.
They're incredible,
TV
yeah.
shows. Yeah.
Absolutely. But and I'm not saying they copied or anything, but if we do, in season 2 of this or something like that, we do have, the villain turn for Norman Osborn. I'm going to point back to this particular scene and these parallels perfectly with the early scenes of the Flash series, because you have this person that now, this mentor figure who's coaching our early stages of our hero, then take a villain turn. Oh man, like it's perfect. It's perfect writing in doing that, because it's the enemy from within. You don't expect it after that. You start getting the trust, like, type of thing, and you start building up the hero, and the hero never thinks the person who's like coaching me through all of this and helping me become a better hero is going to be the ultimate villain.
Yeah.
Perfect. I loved that. But yeah, for now, we just have the good side of that. we saw the first fight where Norman was coaching Barry. Coaching
Peter.
No, this is a Flash crossover. No,
Yeah.
Norman is coaching Peter during this fight, and they have to work together to basically defeat the villain couple. And I think it was great, and I really enjoyed, kind of having that back and forth while they were doing it and stuff like that. And you can see, how Peter is able to kind of adapt and work, having someone coach him through stuff, which I think is really cool too. But Rico, what were some of your takeaways for episode 3?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes into why you cast somebody like Coleman Domingo, who is just a phenomenal actor. I think he's either up for an Oscar this year, or he was up for one last year for sure, but he might be a back-to-back nominee, but he just does incredible work. He was somebody that a lot of people were hoping that was going to actually replace Jonathan Majors as Kang for a long time. Like he was like the leading name that a lot of people were talking about. So when I heard he was doing a voice in this show, I feel like that's like him like dipping his toes into the waters before they do something like really big with him in live action for him. I feel like, but I think the reason you cast someone like him for someone like Norman is like right now we're getting like this like sincere version of Norm that it feels like he's like, okay, yeah, I can buy into him actually like wanting to help because especially for the reasons that he gives Peter, like you saved my son twice, so now I've kind of feel like indebted to help out Spider-Man, whether he wants like all my help or not. Like he kind of bullies his way into Peter's suit at one point. He goes, "How are you talking to me?" He goes, "I hacked a satellite and just like put it into conduct your suit." He goes, "Okay, that's a little bit weird, but we can talk about this later." So like he kind of like bullies his way into helping Peter, which I think is very Norman. I think, of course. But it's kind of fun to watch that relationship kind of like unfold because there's going to be a turning point. And like this again this sincere vibe that you get from Norman now, I know there's going to be a moment where the switch is going to flip and he's going to be very terrifying in some form. So I'm excited to see that kind of performance come out of Coleman Domingo at some point.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we have plenty more to go through for episodes 4 and 5, but just in you saying that, I'm still on the fence of how different they could make this universe type of thing. Like it would be insane that they introduced both Osborns super early into the season or in the season, but in the series in general, that we don't get a Green Goblin or something like that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, what if it ends up, it's still just to change things and show us that this universe is different. What if, it ends up being Harry that ends up becoming Green Goblin because Norman Osborn wants to double the chances of a hero and tries to experiment on his son to try to make Team Spider-Man and have like not a sidekick, but have more members on the roster for heroes. And then it goes wrong. Like, I'm just saying there's just interesting things here and there that I'm wondering if they're breadcrumbs. I'm wondering if they're going to shift things to show us things can be different, or if they're going to go, well, now they think we're going to shift everything. So now we're going to do it how we've already been presented with Green Goblin and stuff like that before. So just very interested to see how things pan out and just kind of watch everything really closely. But Rico, you want to get to some episode 4 quick reactions?
Yeah, let's do
it. Like you have a choice.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, this, what you were saying, what I was kind of talking about kind of leads perfectly into this, because literally the tail end, very last scene of episode 3, we see, Peter kind of, going back to the Oscorp building.
Yeah, after the mission. Going
right back in, pulling his mask off instantly and trying to talk to Norman Osborn, who then we
like,
yeah, he's like and then we have Harry's voice again going, "You're Spider-Man?" Like,
yeah.
It just leads me to say
begins and ends with someone being like, "Oh, you're Spider-Man."
Yeah. It leads me to say this. This version of Peter is really bad at keeping his identity a secret. I am shocked Nico doesn't know anything about his secret identity, or like Aunt May at this point, or because I mean, just in the grand scheme of things, we have Aunt May figure out in our MCU Spider-Man, we have Aunt May figure it out on her own, and at least that version of Spider-Man is a little bit better at keeping
I don't know about that, because he does hop back into his room and Ned's in there, and then that's he immediately blows his cover there, and he pretty much tells a lot of people that he's Spider-Man to the point where Doctor Strange has to make people forget that he's Spider-Man. He literally gets his cover blown at one point.
All right. But so that's at least
historically, I feel like he's been pretty bad at keeping his secret. Because I think even the Toby version, to a degree, like let his secret out at one point. Even May at one point is like, I've always known. Like
the Toby version, he gets seen by an entire subway
train full of people. Yeah. So subway. I think there's always a point where his cover is pretty good at being blown, I feel like, to a degree. But yeah, right away.
What about Andrew Garfield? Is he I mean,
You mean Gwen knew and stuff, but
Gwen's father, and some of the villains, but that's about it.
yeah, 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 and then eventually Harry, and it was yeah, going back to Harry, like they done the Harry Goblin thing even
Right.
back then as well. But it's all about how you approach it, right? Because even in the game, Norman does some pretty cool, crazy stuff with Harry as well, and it leads them to being goblins or
Right.
Venom. I mean, so it's
Right.
like yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I mean that was my my biggest instant reaction, which is
Yeah,
like,
I'm waiting for like more people to find out that he's Spider-Man like really fast too.
yeah, yeah. But Rigo, what were some of your like instant reactions for episode 4?
Yeah, so like I think immediately what probably everybody thought of when we saw this episode, it's like we're going through all the different like the looks that we're trying all this different thing, and I'm like Norman has turned into Edna Mode. He's the super suit manufacturer guy, and goes let's try this out for different reasons. Okay, it doesn't work, and we even get the no capes reference of short because he gets caught in the fence, and then get I'm like classic no capes. There's no capes moment, and that's why we don't do those.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I had really a lot of fun in this particular episode because like we get a few different like super suit making references in the MCU, specifically She-Hulk has one with the leapfrog character and how that's all done. So which I think is really funny. But yeah, I just had a lot of fun with like playing around with and doing some classic homage looks at the same time, just some stuff that we've seen in the comics, like the Hornet suit and stuff like that. It was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. You want to get to some big takeaways for episode 4?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off takeaways?
Okay, so this episode specifically dealt a lot with like the Sokovia, like what the stuff with the Sokovia Accords and everything, and obviously that's how we meet Spider-Man in the Civil War movie, of course. And he's a big part of that airport battle, of course. And we get a nice little screenshot of Giant Man holding on to a War Machine, which is from the movie as well. So it's like I love that everything like that fight still happens all the same way, but Spider-Man is not there. So I wonder who was like fighting Falcon and Winter Soldier and stuff like that during that one little sequence. Like, who are they fighting in his place in this little what if adjacent world? But I just like the way that like we're building out this Spider-Man world in this MCU adjacent timeline kind of a thing. Like we can reference stuff that is done in the movies that we can acknowledge and like, okay, what would Spider-Man be doing if he was just doing his thing while all of this stuff is going on right there? Like, in the movies we get Spider-Man villains, Spider-Man taking on Spider-Man villains. Like we get, I think Homecoming probably did it the best with like, with the Vulture and then having the Tinkerer and the Shocker, like all these different guys that were like actual Spider-Man villains and kind of laying out that street level world for him. But then they made it bigger and bigger, of course, and to the point where we have like multiversal versions of like the biggest villains. But I'm like, I would really like to see the original version, like the MCU version of those guys, not just pulling them in from other universes. So I feel like they do a good job of kind of laying that groundwork in here as well. Like, by the end we get the Otto Octavius reveal, of course, like being the guy who's doing all that. So that's really cool. So I'm like, okay, yeah, and he looks just like the classic versions. Like I just loved when they do like that classic look of Otto. But yeah, and then of course like setting up the Scorpion Gang, of course, with Matt Gargan, and even like his as number one, the woman who's also another version of Scorpion in the books as well. So you got the Scorpion Gang being laid out there. Like we got teased with Scorpion in Homecoming, but we don't really get much more of him, and I wish we did because I just like his look overall, like especially in the '90s suit in the animated show, like his cool suit with this big scorpion stinger tail and everything. I would just like to see them go like full send on something like that for him. So yeah, I just really like that we're getting like those kind of references in there. Like we're building up this street level Spider-Man world, but there's still like big MCU things going on at the same time. And it's just like he's just doing his thing, helping out the little guy like he's always wanted to do.
Yeah, it's so cool to kind of every once in a while when they refer to something that we know from the main MCU universe, like it is cool because it just like you said, it's interesting to then think about, okay, how did that airport battle actually go? Like, is there somebody that took that place? Like, who could have, been brought in by Iron Man in that situation? And you kind of think about it and you're like, who? Like,
right? Like what if it's like Daredevil or something like that? That'd be kind of cool because I know we're gonna get a version of Daredevil, but like it'd be kind of cool to see like who would have been somebody that Iron Man would be keeping his eye on, so to speak.
Yeah, that would be interesting if it ended up being Daredevil was on Team Iron Man for that. Like that would he is a really good lawyer. But
Even like having watching them like debate like the the morals of it, like, oh, you still like Captain America even though he's like a man who's wanted now and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's like, he's still like a good guy.
Yeah.
So like I like that they throw in those little like conversations that make you think about those little moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, kind of going off of what you were kind of starting to get into when we were talking about instant reactions for this episode, I loved having kind of an underlying running storyline of the entire episode 4 was him trying out different suits. It wasn't the main storyline for episode 4, but it was just cool to have, just to keep throwing back to it and kind of going through these models. And it kind of, the way that Norman Osborn brought it up is kind of more, this is the episode where I kind of was like, maybe Rico's right, and Norman Osborn isn't taking this for the just heroic intentions type of thing, because he was talking about focus groups, and he was talking about like you know what I mean, like we have our best people on this, and like he's treating it
He
like
wants to control Spider-Man and like use him for profit or basically
that and like business and just like
he wants to exploit him.
And I mean, we see how those, what he thought would be the best situations flopped immediately. Like the first one literally was the cape, and that was horrible. And other ones were like terrifying, so they were scaring people. And just like, it was
the black suit, like, that I knew this wasn't gonna do it. This was gonna happen. Like I had feelings that happened when you scared children in the whole black suit.
So it was just really interesting to see that, and kind of we see a little bit of that underlying, maybe not 100% transparent or heroic motives for Norman Osborn. Just lightly sprinkled in here. It wasn't super served up to us like obvious, but like it's just there. There are hints here and there, and I like series, especially now that they know they're renewed until season 3. They can do these slow burn things and give us little tiny like breadcrumbs here that maybe don't have a payoff until a season 2 or maybe even a season 3 for all we know. But you know what I mean? It's really cool that they, knowing all this, they can do these slow burns and just have these little tiny things every once in a while to kind of be like, this isn't as perfect as it seems from the get-go. But I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed seeing all the suits. I thought that was funny. I have a little to say about the suit that got settled on. So that was shown to us in episode 5. Would you like to get to some instant reactions for episode 5?
Yeah, before we do that though, I do want to say like the going through the different suits to me, I'm gonna make a lot of references to this, especially in the next episode too. But it feels like it feels like you're playing the game, like the Spider-Man games, because you get access to all these cool suits. And so like,
I totally agree with that.
And I feel like they're not suits that we even see in the game either. Like the Hornet suit, I don't think they ever went to the Hornet suit within the games ever. But the fact that he's just got so many different cool suits out there that you can pull for like these nice little deep cut references, it's just like it's a lot of fun. And it just feels like all these different blends of the Spider-Man media forms that we've gotten into one little thing, kind of like the Spider-Verse movies as well. Kind of felt the same way, but they're just doing another thing is just building their own little world and making it feel like you're taking part in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I actually kept that comment off of our rundown because I feel like I say it too often. But yeah, I was getting like some vibes from the video game in this mixture of these 3 episodes that we got. I mean, not for nothing, you always have somebody talking like in your HUD and stuff like that. Right. You know what I mean? So like even just the addition of that in these episodes automatically kind of gave me that vibe. But yeah, exactly like what you're saying, where there's these insane roster of special suits that we're trying out and stuff like that. It's just another video game reference / vibe for this. But instant reaction to episode 5.
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So the only thing I'll say about this, I think I'm happy they're settling on finally a Spider-Man suit, but I do agree with Peter and Harry that I want to see more red and blue in the suit. Like,
oh yeah, everyone wants to see the classic suit. I think at some point. Yeah, they're gonna make it earned for sure.
Yeah.
Like a lot of shows do this too. Even like I feel like Daredevil, when we just had him in the black shirt and like just like the bandana covered in the eyes, like but when we finally got that suit at the end of the season, like there it is, like
Well, that
yeah.
that felt super earned.
Yeah,
Because
I think they're doing that with this like classic suit, and they're also just playing around with new looks too at the same
right,
time.
right.
Yeah,
No, I get that and everything, and it will be worth the wait when we get the payoff and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, I like the suit
very Future
itself.
Foundation. Yeah,
Yeah, I like the suit itself. I can't wait to see it in, the classic
yeah.
color style.
Oh yeah, they're
That's all.
teasing you when they do that too. They're like, okay, you want some red and blue in there? We'll give it to you.
But what were some of your instant reactions for episode 5?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed this one. As again, this 3 episode release really did feel like one long storyline too, which I think is why they did it like this, and I'm really glad they did because it just flowed really well and it sets up a lot of cool stuff. But one, I love that the fact that this was like there were so many options for who this character could be that was providing these criminals with all this tech. Like it could have been Norman, it could have been the Tinkerer, someone like him. Like that, you could have gone so many different routes with this. But I love that it was Otto Octavius, and I think it was just a really cool way to kind of set up like the way he's kind of teased at in episode 3. When they drop the money off in the dumpster and the dumpster just crawls away, you're just like, okay, this is someone who's got some really. That's I think immediately I think is it Tinkerer, like it's someone who just like messes around with like some stuff like that. But yeah, so I and it was really cool reveal when it ended up being Otto. But I love the scene with him and I think actually we were talking about Leapfrog from She-Hulk. That's the character that's alongside Otto in this version of this. Yeah, so I forget the character's actual name. But he's who will become Leapfrog in the comics. So I think again, somebody's always going to be somebody in this. Like if they're throwing in a character, right? So I love that. But I love his need for like power and recognition to be on the same levels as like the Banners, the Starks, and the Osborns.
Mhm.
Like he puts a little more emphasis on Osborn because of how much he hates Norman. But so I think a classic thing I think between the characters, just going through the books, like of course in the Toby verse, like Oscorp was providing him with the stuff that he needed, and then he kind of blames them later on as well.
Mhm.
And then of course going back to the game, the whole genesis of like Otto going into like the madness that he does is because like Norman is basically like sabotaging him through and through. Like that's why he's kind of doing like these little these experiments in like this little rinky dink lab, like he's basically doing here. So I do like this approach where it kind of feels like we'll get this nice little. We already have like an evil Otto, and he's just doing his thing in his lab basically. But yeah, I just like the way they're approaching him here, and I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with this character going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really I liked the take on the character. Like I don't get me wrong. The 90s cartoon version of, Otto Octavius and obviously, Doc Ock and stuff like that in that is iconic and I, I'll remember that for forever. I literally have rewatched that series multiple times, especially since it came on to DisneyPlus. But it almost felt like, and we didn't get too much with this version of Otto yet. We just got a couple minutes basically.
Mhm.
It just felt like a new kind of fresh little bit of a take. Like he has a chip on his shoulder, which I get, but it was almost like I don't know. It felt fresh, and that's what I enjoyed about it because it just felt a little bit different and in the right way. And that's kind of what we'd been saying about this series right from the get go when we had the 2-episode premiere was that things were just altered just enough that they're super recognizable, but they still feel fresh because just little tweaks.
You have to tweak little things.
Yeah, and I just by the tone of his voice, it just felt a little different, and the fact that just like you were saying. It's not just like a universe where, like in the 90s universe, where, we did even in the later seasons of that get reference to a Tony Stark and a Captain America and stuff like that. But way leading up to that, it was really just, Otto and Norman Osborn. And those were the two kind of butting heads.
It was never, yeah.
Right. It was never like in the conversation of Tony Stark and Banner and Norman Osborn and like I should be in the top with them, like type of thing. And I just thought that line was really cool because it shows how more like how many more characters are really in this universe, all literally at the exact same time. So I'm wondering if because of that, now, like you said, I do agree that maybe his harshest rival will be Osborn, but I'm almost wondering if because there are, multiple, praised businessmen and scientists in this take, if Otto isn't just going to target like just Norman type of thing. So like we're not going to get that main, butting heads of these two type of thing. We're going to get him kind of just doing this, kind of supplying street level people until he can rise to power kind of on his own merit, and then kind of goes after the next tier up from there type of thing, which would be, maybe Bruce and Tony or Norman or something like, you know what I mean? Like I'm wondering if it change how this ripple changes things basically. And I mean, that's a big question every episode for this series type of thing is how we see these little things change things. It's just interesting to talk about. I can talk about this for hours. So I will cut myself off so I don't make this that long.
I love it.
Would you like to get to some big takeaways for episode 5?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna kick off takeaways for episode 5 with just probably my favorite line from this episode, where Harry is now officially the dude in the desk.
Do the desk. Guys, the guy at the chair. Just do the desk and the guy at the chair.
I just love that. I love that take at that. But expanding on that, I really liked seeing, Harry and Peter, working together. We already had, in an earlier episode, we had Norman, helping Peter during a battle and stuff like that. And we kind of see, the mentor-mentee kind of, situation basically where, he's coming from, I need to listen to this person. I need to work with this person. He's instructing me. He's a mentor figure. But now it's almost like we have kind of two people on the same level. So now it goes back to almost like the same situation with Ned and Peter in our, MCU with Tom Holland, Spider-Man type of thing, where they're basically peers at this point. And they're doing it kind of early stages of both of them kind of doing this type of thing. So you can feel kind of like the inexperience coming from Harry on like, hey man, are you okay? Like, just like little lines like that here and there. I just think it's really cool to kind of see the early stages of things that we haven't seen before. Like, we know that Peter and Harry in a lot of other, whether it's the cartoon, whether it's, the Tobey Maguire versions of Spider-Man type of thing, we see that they have a friendship and we see, that kind of thing. And we kind of basically just see their introduction and then we flash forward to where they're already friends type of thing. But this is, we're actually seeing, forged in fire kind of friendship / co-workership type of thing. And I just think it's kind of cool that we kind of get this this beginning take, these without stealing something from the Fantastic Four trailer that just came out. We see the first steps.
Ah, yes. Nice.
It all comes back to the MCU. But yeah, I just found that really interesting. I really liked that, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing Peter and Harry become friends, because we already were seeing them kind of starting to open up to each other to talk about more personal stuff as this was all happening too. So I like seeing the early steps of this friendship and this kind of work relationship kind of, slowly build. And I just found that really interesting. But Rico, what were some of your big takeaways for episode 5?
Yeah, if you want to make another comparison to the Flash, it's like, if Norman's going to be his Harrison Wells, then Harry's kind of like the Cisco in this situation, right? So and it's pretty cool. I like the way they approach Harry in this show. Of course, obviously it's a kind of a loner because of like who his dad is as well, and he feels like people are like you said, like probably either friends with him for clout, if anything like that, like using him for clout. So it's really quite nice to have like a real friend in Peter, and of course that's always kind of like the start of their friendships. I feel like in the past, even the Andrew Garfield one too, like it starts off as a nice friendship before it gets complicated at one point, right? Especially because of who his dad ends up becoming in most times more than not. So I have to imagine that's that's another arc that's gonna happen at some point in the show as well. I feel like Harry is gonna be a big genesis for either Norman becoming evil, or just him becoming corrupted by his dad in some form, or maybe Norman gets into his head, of course, and makes him the evil one instead. Who knows? I think there's so many different ways you can go with that relationship, and I'm very excited to see that unfold. But for me, I saved this for this episode because it's really kind of an all 3-episode kind of a thing. But this full story arc for Lonnie that we get in this series of episodes is really fantastic. I think it was really like the main story arc that I was really interested in as this was all unfolding, of course, with him going from him taking his brother's place in the gang, of course, and we're starting to see the steps of like this star football player who's going to start throwing his life down the drain essentially, and just like, oh no, like you're like kind of watching all these little things unfold. Of course, him being sent into the enemy neighborhood to go get tacos and stuff, not realizing that he was basically being set up, which is another so like doing all these things and kind of proving himself as a man in this gang, of course. And I think he's even hanging out with like the wrecking crew that one that we've seen from She-Hulk, of course, like a bulldozer and stuff like that. So I think that there's a version of that part of the gang in there as well. I'm not sure if Big Donovan is supposed to be anybody from the books that we know, but this whole character arc of him turning into Tombstone basically is like I was telling you before we started recording that as soon as episode 3 started, and we were starting to follow Lonnie's story a little bit more. I'm like, where's this Lonnie Lincoln? Like, I know that name, and so I looked it up, and I'm like, oh my god, he's Tombstone. That's crazy. And I did not anticipate.
You didn't do boom big reveal or anything.
Yeah, I didn't do anything like that. But I did not anticipate by the end we would get that boom big reveal that like he gets his Tombstone name. I was like, oh shit, like that's pretty cool because like it shows that he could take some damage. Like he gets like shanked in the arm pretty good, and like he just kind of like shakes it off. Like, yeah, no, I'm good. So you're like, okay, cool. So yeah, I just think watching like again, it's the opposite of Peter's story. Like Peter's doing his thing. He's kind of like flourishing as Spider-Man, getting all these new upgrades and stuff like that. But at the same time, the star football player, his life is going down the drain. So you're seeing like one life go up, one go down. So it's kind of cool like when you go back and forth between those two storylines too. Like it's also like it's cool because like not to make Peter feel like he's like not the main character of his own story, but like when they can make a secondary character like Lonnie's story so compelling, you're like, yeah, I'm really excited to see where they're going with a character like Tombstone too. Like he's someone that we saw in the Spider-Man game. He was used really well in that. And I feel like he's a character, and he's also in the Spider-Verse movies as well, to a degree. So I feel like he's somebody that they're starting to realize has some really good story potential in media. And I like these kind of like, again, this is a very different take on them, of course. Like we're actually getting like a cool origin story for Tombstone over like, certain villains. So that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, anytime where you can, build out a villain so we know, past, present, future type of thing makes you feel more connected to the character, like type of thing. And it really makes kind of more of like a 3-dimensional villain type of thing. You know what I mean? And I guess, this is also one of the benefits of, knowing way ahead of time that you're renewed for 3 seasons, because you can take this time to do this. And I'm hoping, that, we do get these kind of payoffs. Like I was saying with Norman Osborn as another example, like where they don't have to, make the storyline fit to one season where we have a turn from one episode to another. We can have these little teeny tiny moments of going, maybe there's something there, or maybe there's not, like, and we don't know yet because they don't have to, just go full keel into it yet. They have so much more time to kind of let these things kind of just marinate very softly in the background and give us little things and take, a story and take a character like Lonnie and have this through story arc, like you said, where it was 100% connected in all of these 3 episodes, where we do see, the choices that he is forced to make, which is how, like, it's so heartbreaking for this too, because we're introduced to Lonnie and he breaks the stereotype of, the bully, the jock that, is going to be, kind of the opposite of Peter from the beginning type of thing. And then you're like, oh shit, this is one of Peter's new friends. He's like a good guy. Like he legitimately is a good guy. And then we even find out how much of a really good person he is. He actually, not for nothing, he sacrifices pretty much everything.
Does everything. Yeah, his whole future.
For his family and for his little brother and for everyone around him. Like when he was willing to buy lunch for everyone, and he spoke too soon and basically had to forego eating for himself type of thing. Like we see all of these sacrifices that he's willing to make previous to this, and then we see the kind of the heartbreaking decisions that he's forced to make while this is happening, and we're kind of just seeing this one forced decision after another forced decision, and they're all compounding into things to steer him towards now being the character of Tombstone moving forward type of thing. And and you really feel for a character like that, especially because they can give us this the story arc, like you were saying, over these 3 episodes, but also from the first 2 where we were introduced to him, we found out we're like, oh shit, he's a nice guy, like type of
exactly
thing. So it's really interesting, and it just kind of, the bigger point I'm trying to make is I really like how we have this much time to stretch our legs on characters that maybe in past iterations and in past mediums we don't have that kind of time. They have one movie or they have one series. They have no idea if it's going to get renewed or anything like that. They have one season to a series type of thing, so they have to just everything has to happen really quick. This we have so much breathing room, and it just, I think I hope they continue to do this kind of thing, so that we can really feel for all of these characters, not just for Peter, not just for, like, what I mean, because it really makes you feel more connected to this universe, and it's just really cool that a series can do that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you want to get to some predictions finally?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off predictions?
So yeah, I think maybe the biggest thing after all this is all these 3 episodes are over, I'm looking forward to seeing more of like Lonnie's transformation into what, like, the Tombstone that I'm sure we'll know him as. So yeah, I think just like, I think it's all about him kind of like, one, he's throwing his whole future away, of course, but he's gonna rise to power in the streets, I feel like, and it's gonna he's creating more opportunities for himself because he's such a capable he's a great athlete, but he's also a really smart kid, because like he's at a really smart school at the same time too. Like these guys are also jocks, but they're also really smart kids at the same time. So yeah, I'm just excited to see that whole character transformation unfold for him. And I'm not excited for him too, because I want him to succeed. Like that's the thing. We like the Lonnie character, and like you said, like watching him like try to get out of doing something for Big Don because he's got practice, something and goes, oh no, I got a car right there, he's already waiting for you. You're like, damn it, like he's got to go. Right. And you what's going to happen for him later on for that. But yeah, I love, again, we got this great full story arc for Lonnie, and I think they're setting up some really good stuff for a character like Nico. Especially when we're bringing in this new friendship for Peter with Harry, and how obviously that doesn't really rub Nico the right way. Like, oh yeah, I'm sorry that I brought him along here on this, like, to the movies with us, and she doesn't really react very well to it. So and of course, she's got a pretty complicated character history herself. Like, like I said, she's part of the Runaways group, which is like, a group of kids who are like, their parents all work for like an evil organization. Like they basically just found out their parents were all evil, and then they had to like, run away from their parents. So they had to get their group, of course. It's a great show on Hulu that lasted a few seasons. If you never watched it, I highly recommend it. It ended up having the kid from Penguin, of course.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he's actually one of the main characters in that, and I wish I could remember his character's name in Penguin now. It's drawing a blank, but yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to kind of see past. But Nico's a really fascinating character as well in that show, and usually in the comics, she's got like a big staff that she kind of carries some powers along with it. But I think in this one, she's wearing just like the necklace, which has like a little emblem on it. She keeps looking at it. Yeah. So I'm wondering if they're just using that as like a way of channeling the power through like that, probably, as opposed to her carrying around a big staff like a scepter, which makes a lot more sense, of course, for a kid just be walking around with that little kind of a totem, an emblem on that around her neck. So I really hope we'll get some kind of like a deep dive into like her history, because she's living with a foster parent, if I'm not mistaken, and she's not, so she's already gone from her parents, and I wonder if we'll actually get some kind of backstory with that, leaving me some flashback stuff with Nico, and kind of figuring out because it's going to go into like how her character is, and probably why she's so protective of her friendship with Peter too. She feels like someone's going to like take her from like I've already lost my parents, I can't be losing my friends too, kind of a thing. So yeah, I'm excited to see that, and if it will dive into her like Runaways story at all. Maybe the other Runaways are still out there too, like if she knows them, or if it's just like a one-off thing with her. But yeah, I really would like to see, because we're getting another 3-episode arc, or 3-episode release next week.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll do the same thing, and we'll start diving into kind of those characters. And then, of course, I imagine in some form or way, like we got the setup with Otto, and obviously like his hatred of Norman too. I wonder if like he'll have a part in maybe somehow Norman going evil. It's like maybe like again, that's where I feel like something bad could probably happen to Harry in some form or another. Like Harry's going to be the reason that Norman goes bad in some way or another. Like he's driving for his love for his son in some way. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see like all the pieces kind of go into the puzzle right now, because there's a lot of pieces they're laying out. And again, like you said, we got 3 seasons to work with. So it's like, what can you say for now? And what can you go to later on too? Because we still got characters like Kingpin to shut up and stuff. So there's a big Spider-Man world just that we're building here. And I think this first season is really just going like, okay, this is over here, this is over here, this is over here. And I'll get ready for it all to like go into one big melting pot.
Yeah, we're finding all the corner spots and the edges, and then we're all of these look like water, all these look like grass. Like we're finding all the puzzle pieces and putting them in the right.
Is Amadeus Cho going to be Hulk? Like there's still like that little like come on.
No, I totally agree with you. I would really like to see an arc like where we have a through line of kind of more expansion on Nico as a character and stuff like that, because not for nothing, I really like the relationship that Peter and Nico have, and I've kind of said that from the beginning. I don't really have I didn't put it as any of my takeaways, but I do like that, because we're not getting like Nico where she's like jealous or anything, but we're getting Nico where she's trying to protect Peter also. Like she has his best interest in things too. Like, so when he first shows up with Harry, like gets dropped off, she's like, is everything okay? Like making sure like that he's okay. Not, well, you can't be friends with him because I'm friends with him. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's a very like relatable thing. Like you don't want your best friend to kind of get sucked into the wrong crowd and stuff like that. So she's very protective, just like you were saying, of not only their friendship, but of Peter as a person, regardless of anything. And so I really I want to see more of their friendship and more, built onto that, but also more of like Nico's character as a whole. Anyway, I would totally be down to, to have that kind of through line arc in like the next 3 episodes if we get lucky enough to have that and stuff like that. I'm just, in general, I'm really enjoying everything. I'm really enjoying like the subtle differences, and then just like we've brought up in both of our recaps so far, I'm really enjoying when we get like these classic moments that like or nods to classic moments that happened in the MCU, and now we're just like they're just referring to them as if they're happening, because they are happening in this universe, and maybe one thing's different. And obviously, the airport battle, the one thing that's different is Spider-Man wasn't there. But like just being able to sit here, hear about them and characters and stuff like that, like Iron Man and Captain America and all that kind of stuff. But we're getting a different glimpse of things, because obviously little things are happening and it changes the ripples of everything. So it's just cool. I just like it. I don't know.
We got a reference to another character that's been pretty popular lately. Harry has a picture with one Luna Snow, which is pretty cool. And I was like, oh, they're sprinkling in, because you know me, I love me some Marvel Rivals right now. And and Luna Snow is a pretty popular character in that game. Of course, she's been a pretty prominent character, I feel like, in the last few years, and just showing up in different little forms of media, mostly gaming. I feel like she's been showing up more there. But again, if we might see our first like kind of like animated form of a Luna Snow showing up. It'd be pretty cool. But I just like the way that like I just feel like Marvel as a company is really good at doing this. It's like putting characters in certain media forms and getting people into them, and then I'm like, okay, like if they're responding well to these characters, now we can put them in like an animated show. Like if they're working well in an animated show, maybe they'll work well in a live action form. So I think it's a really cool way how they kind of test the waters with certain characters and kind of go off the reactions based off of that, and then put different spins on them and stuff. So yeah, I was like, that was pretty cool. They just threw in like a little Luna Snow Easter egg, and people are going to notice that now, because there's so many people are playing the game. So I think like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
really cool.
So what you're telling me is that there's still a chance we could get Jeff the Shark in the series.
Shit, at this point, anything is possible. Yeah, I mean, I would
always
not
a Jeff the Shark.
I think there is definitely going to be a Jeff the Shark appearance in one of these shows coming up. If they do it in Spider-Man, it would make a lot of sense. But they have to really, they're staying pretty street level for right now.
Right.
I think once they start diving into the more weird stuff, they can definitely start doing that.
Well, they were already. Somebody's on record, and I don't know. I know I read it in an article. I don't know who it was. Someone. I don't know if it could have been the creator of Jeff the Shark, because it is its own comic book series. It wasn't just the first time we're seeing it in Marvel Rivals, but on record said Jeff the Shark is going to be in the MCU. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, the head of the TV and streaming animation.
That's it.
So he'll be in, the Brad Winterbaum. Yeah, I was just looking at it because has he shown up in anything yet? And it's mostly just video games and board games and stuff like that.
You know what? We have a chance, like Kate Bishop, Hawkeye season 2. We could get a Kate Bishop introducing Jeff the Landshark. Like,
ooh, that would be a big leap.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, we got Lucky the Pizza Dog. Let's go, Jeff the Landshark. I want some Jeff. Come on, man.
Yeah. I think we got to do something in animated form for sure, and figure out something with him to do there. Absolutely, it's gonna happen. We know it's gonna happen. He's already said it's gonna happen. But yeah, I think figuring out how to work him in there without it being like a gimmick in a sense. Right. Like I want to see him used in like a pretty like in a way that like he leaves an impression too. Like he's a Jeff the Land Shark and he's a cute looking like dog shark kind of a thing. But like watch him have like a cool oh shit moment. Watch him swallow up some people from underneath or something like that. Yeah, I want if you do a cool reference to like his old in Marvel Rivals something like that, or like it's so much like you can have a lot of fun with something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the meantime, I want to get the complete collection of Jeff the Landshark comic series.
There you go.
But anyway, as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episodes 3, 4, and 5? And what are you most excited to hopefully explore in this MCU adjacent Spider-Man universe next? There are no wrong answers. And really, I mean, anything could happen. We have, we have the availability of 3 seasons to explore anything we want. So the sky's the limit. Let us know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.